this is Runa and you're listening to the Changemakers podcast, where we share tips, insight, tools and stories from other changemakers designed to motivate you to become the change you want to see in your world. Make sure you join our Changemakers community at runamagnus.com/podcast. And now, this is your time to sit back, relax and enjoy. Yes. Good morning, Rocco.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good. You're in what? You said you're in Las Vegas.
Yes, I am. So it's 5 a.m. here in Las Vegas. And,
oh my God.
Well, at least it's early enough that it's quiet.
Yeah.
No, actually, I'm not. I'm going to take it back. Maybe you have to repeat this. I'm actually not in Vegas. That's another. I'm actually in San Diego.
Oh, you're in San Diego. Well, okay.
Yes.
Here's the thing. When you're doing podcasts with people all over the world, you know, it bounds to happen that you're interviewing them at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, that's a really good one. For my audience, guess what? Today we're interviewing Rocky Romanella. He is the CEO of 360 Business Leadership Training and the author of the book Tighten the Lug Nuts, The Principles of Balanced Leadership. And I don't know about you guys, but I am dying to know, is there a balance in leadership? And what the heck does Tighten the Lug Nuts means? So Rocky, welcome to the Changemakers podcast. And can I just go right into that question? What does that mean? Tighten the Lug Nuts.
Well, it's a great story that's in the book. The book is written in a storytelling format, so that almost every chapter has a story that's relatable and a story that ties together the theory and sort of the lesson. And so, Tighten the Lug Nuts is one of those stories that took place during my business career. And just a quick story is I was out visiting one of my facilities, and at that time I was working for UPS. And there was a process or a project that we needed improvement on. And I was walking out to find the supervisor who would fall under his or her responsibility. And I was going to have that conversation with them about how they could make that improvement. And I always try to challenge people that someone's going to be the best at this. Why not you? And as I was walking to have this conversation with him, I noticed that one of the vehicles had some loose lug nuts. And so I went over and I'm like, yeah, sure enough, probably from the vibration and all the movement, there's some loose lug nuts. So as I approached him, I said, hey, I got this really important opportunity for you. I think you're the best person for it. But before you get to that, we got a vehicle over there with some loose lug nuts. And he's sort of like, yeah. But he can't wait to hear, A, what the project is. And B, he's all excited that I've selected him to be the person to make this change or make this improvement in this process. So, we talk about it. I told him, hey, whatever help you need, I'll be there for you. But, I need someone to be the best at this. Why not you? And so a couple of days later, I go down to his operation to see how he's doing and see what I can help him with and see if we've made some improvement, and I can't find him. So one of his peers says to me, hey, he's in his office. He's got some situation he's working on. So I walk in his office and he's like, I can't believe it. I've got no luck. I said, what happened? He said, one of the vehicles, the driver called me and said he can't move it anymore. He thinks the front wheel's loose. I said, well, is that the vehicle I told you about the other day? And he said, yeah, why? I said, well, didn't you just tighten the lug nuts? And he looked at me and he said, well, no, I got caught up in this thing that you wanted me to do that was so important. I go, listen, that's the lesson here. When the lug nuts were loose, they were important. When you didn't tighten them, they became urgent. You can only handle so many urgent things. And so the lesson is tighten the lug nuts, take care of important things when they're important. And you see it all the time in business or in your personal life where you get emails from someone, a customer calls you and says, hey, we're having this issue. Can you follow up? But you get sidetracked with something else. And then all of a sudden it's like, stop everything. We have to go fix that. And that's when you get overwhelmed as a person and as a business leader. So tighten the lug nuts, take care of the simple things. Don't let important things become urgent. And that story became the title of the book. And so the book is full of a lot of those kinds of stories. Yeah. Some funny, some were, aha moments where you stop for a second and you think, wow, I mean, that could have been a disaster. Nothing happened. Nobody got hurt. It wasn't an accident or anything. But that simple act of tightening the lug nuts could have taken him 5 minutes on that day. Now it's turned into a 3-hour project.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everyone can relate to that. It reminds me of, a story about the jar and putting the big pebbles in the jar first, and how you can continue to, is the jar full? No, it's not. You can still put sand. Is the jar full? No, you can still put water in it. So really about focusing on where you want to put your focus on and what needs to be done first. Because, yeah, you're right. We're so sidetracked today. Yeah, and all the things that we have that's supposed to be helping us out and can be helping us out with, and now I'm talking about all the smartphones and your computer, and getting all these notifications that are constantly taking you off track. So yeah, really, really good. Like the story that you're saying, really it is. So you talk a lot about principles of balanced leadership.
Okay.
Tell me, will we ever experience that balance thing?
Well, I think balance is so important in everything you do. And I also think when you're a leader, balance is important in the way you communicate and in the process approaches that you take. So, for example, nobody really likes when as a leader, every day there's something new, or there's the new shiny object that everybody. And so what happens is that people tend to wait you out. The early adopters don't even really adopt anymore, because there's really no advantage of being an early adopter, because by Thursday you'll change your mind again. And then the people in the middle just say, wait, he or she's going to come up with something new. And then the people who weren't adopting are never going to adopt anyway. And so what ends up happening is you look up one day and you realize nobody's following you, and no one's really doing anything that you had hoped that they would be doing it. And I think that comes in many ways from this, imbalance that you actually drive because of your style or the way you're doing things. And so that's one piece. But the most important part for me as I was growing and I was developing as a leader was I wanted to make sure that I found that it was interesting that when you were developing new processes or new approaches or new products or new ways to run your business or the new ways to approach things, it always felt like there was one central theme, whether it was we're trying to improve productivity, or we're trying to improve our bottom line, or we're trying to grow a new business. And it was like, okay, we're all in on this. And for me, it just seemed to me, and I became aware of this concept of balanced leadership when I thought, well, wait a second. There's really three constituencies when you're making a good decision. It's your customers, it's your people, and your stakeholders. And I think you have to say, okay, who's the customer? Are we thinking like a customer? Do our people feel like valued individuals? Am I acting like an owner in this business? And so I think that's how this balanced leadership came about. I always tried to make sure that all three constituents were represented in the decision-making process. And a good example is someone would bring you a new product. They had done, all the work would have been done from a marketing standpoint, from a pricing point of view. Where's the fit in the marketplace? Is there a demand for it in the market? The CFO would have been banging on the calculator and telling you, oh yeah, we can make money in this. This is a great product. And then I would always look and say, well, okay, the customer's represented, shareholders, stakeholders represented, but who represents the people? Who's going to train our people? What training do they need? Do they understand what role they play in this new product? And so that always kept the balance to make sure that all three constituents were represented. Sometimes one would lead because, we were doing it we were behind in revenue. We needed to grow revenue. But even though that was maybe the driver of the solution, you still made sure that all three constituents were represented. And so I would always end all of my discussions, or anyone who would present me with a new idea, I would look at them percent. If you were writing a check out of your personal checking account, would you do it? And you would be amazed at how many times, probably about 20% of the time, somebody would say, oh, no, if it was my business, I don't know if I'd do that. Or if I was writing a check, and I'd look at them and say, well, why do you want me to do it? Well, you told me you needed new revenue. We told us we have to try something different. Okay, but you still have to, at the end, do it as if you owned the business. And so that's how this whole concept of thinking like a customer, feeling like a valued individual, and acting like an owner was born. And then I used that throughout my career. And today, to this point, I still go through that process.
Yeah. It's a good reminder. You talk a lot in your book. You talk a lot about that no matter what age, race, background, or whatever box you're in, each one of us is touching and influencing each other. At what time in your life did you understand that you were influencing other people?
Well, I wanted to be early on. I went to college to be a high school history teacher and a baseball coach. And so I always admired and I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I started working for UPS as a part-time person unloading trailers. And then started to recognize really got their people to connect the dots. They really were teaching them or explaining to them why they wanted them to do this and why it was important to do it and what role they played. And so today I'm articulating it much better than I did at 19 years old, understanding it. But to me, good leaders were good teachers. And
Mm-hmm.
so I never really gave up my desire to be a teacher. To me, my classroom was now going to be a business scenario rather than a traditional classroom. So that was really for me, as I started to grow and develop inside UPS and take on new responsibilities, it became very apparent to me that being a teacher, having that love for seeing people connect the dots,
Mm-hmm.
getting them to have those aha moments were so important. And that's when I really started to early on in my career say, you know what, after 36 years at UPS, after 4 years as a CEO when we had our sale there, always thinking that, I was a teacher in a leadership role. So I think
Yeah.
that was so important to me, and that's why it was an easy transition for me.
So from that, really, that there is a teacher in all of us.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think
Yeah.
there's a teacher in all of us, but there has to be, like, you have to make decisions quickly. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time to make decisions. Well, sometimes that's true. I mean, I do agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
But what I always felt like, there's a period after that quick decision that has to be made as the leader, that you go back, and if the decision was successful, you're thanking your people, and during that time you're thanking them for their help and their efforts, and helping you get through that difficult time and making that tough decision or the quick decisions. You kind of go back and you're like, thanks for your help. It really came through together nicely. We couldn't have done it without you. And oh, by the way,
Yeah.
here's kind of the reasons why we had to do that. And what you're really doing is, A, you're helping them connect the dots, and B, you're starting to develop future leaders.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and getting them to understand that that's what they need to do as well to get that balance, like you said.
Yes.
You also mentioned quite a bit about the importance of legacy and being aware of the legacy that you are leaving behind. And what do you see as around the topic legacy, which I think is, well, for me, it's really about your personal brand, is really your legacy. What do you see people are most often forgetting in that field, or in that being aware of their legacy?
Well, I think what they forget is that your legacy lives long after the decision you make and the role that you
Mm.
talking about the end. If you think about it, it's how do people look at you long after you're not in that assignment anymore? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what's so important, right? To me, legacy is defined as, do you leave things a little better than you found them? Are people better because of their time with you? Are your customers better because they did that in your care, their organization is in a better place? It doesn't mean you make all the right decisions, doesn't mean you're perfect. What it means is you're thoughtful in your decision-making process. And so for me, I think about that after you leave an organization and someone says, hey, did you know Rocky? And,
Mm.
they may not have agreed with everything, all my decisions. They may have been unhappy with me at times. But one of the nicest compliments I ever expect, and that they saw me as a person who, left things a little better than he found them.
Yeah. Finally, my last question, Rocky. It's been really interesting to hear your insight, and thank you for sharing it. What is the change that you want to see in your world, and what do you see your role to be in leading that change?
So I think the biggest change, or the biggest thing that I would like to see, realize that values do matter. That
Mm.
the core and the staple of us as human beings, as people, are values, and that we treat each other with dignity and respect. You can disagree without being disagreeable, and not
Mm.
everything's a zero-sum game. And so I think that's what's so important. My dad, rest his soul, who's such a huge influence on my adult life, and I talk a lot about them in the book, and a lot of the things that I learned throughout my life and career come from both my dad and my wife. But this whole concept of it's okay to disagree, but not be disagreeable, and that values matter. It matters to you as a person, and it matters to you. It matters to you as an organization. And I would think that you really have to do an inventory and ask yourself three key questions: Who am I? What do I stand for? And what won't I compromise? Because the first two are going to be questions that you can answer quickly and effectively. But number two is the one that makes the difference in who you are. And think about companies. Companies have these, think about what Wells Fargo and Uber and FIFA and some of these organizations went through when they had their challenges, right? Well, they knew who they were. They knew what they stood for. But I'm not sure they articulated that question of what we won't compromise. And then, of course, somebody must have compromised something for them to have these issues and these problems along the way. And it really is a brand killer. I mean, you have a brand promise, and it may take years for an organization to work through those situations. And I think if you think about politics or you think about, in social settings, I think, people think that everything has to be a zero-sum game. It's a winner or a loser. And I think, no, you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think it starts with values and ethics and core values that we should all have.
The core values. Who am I? What do I stand for? And what am I willing to compromise? I love that. Rocky, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom to the Changemakers podcast and our audience today. I wish you the best speaking on stage later today.
Yes. And I'm excited too, because I've been adding book signings. And I have a book sign. I love signing the books. I love talking to the people about the book. So we have a book signing today. And if anyone wants to find me, I'm on services.com. I'm also on Instagram besides Facebook, but I'm starting to like the Instagram and having some fun with the pictures. So if you want to follow us, 360 Management Services on Instagram is a fun way to follow us. But I appreciate the time this morning, and sorry for a little bit of maybe the rough sounding here at the hotel, but I enjoyed our conversation this morning, and I hope your audience enjoys it as well.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Thank you so much, Rocky. Was this podcast of value for you? I sure hope so. If so, feel free to share the love and give us your generous review on iTunes or Stitcher. And remember that you can always go to runemagnus.com to find out more about the Changemakers and how we can help you drive the change you want to see in your world.